Today. It's been about, at a minimum, they estimate, and they're going to be giving you exact numbers, but since last year, they've raised an additional $33 billion. That's been put up by the various countries, not including the United States. And the United States' commitment to NATO is very strong, remains very strong, but primarily because the spirit they have, the amount of money they're willing to spend, the additional money that they will be putting up has been really, really amazing to see it. To see the level of spirit in that room is incredible. And I hope that we're going to be able to get along with Russia. I think that we probably will be able to. The people in the room think so, but they really stepped up their commitment and stepped it up like they never have before. So we took in an additional 33. The number could actually be higher than 40 when they give you the final number. The Secretary General Stoltenberg will be giving those numbers sometime today, probably in his concluding press statement. But we are doing numbers like they've never done before or ever seen before. And you'll be seeing that, and I guess you'll be hearing that a little bit later. Okay, we have our Secretary of State, as you know, and we have John is here. So if you have any questions for the three of us, Mike Pompeo just got back from a third trip, as you know, to North Korea. He's become a true expert on the trips to North Korea, the best way to get there, the best way to get out. And he gets along very well, and he's doing a great job over there. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Yes.
President Terry McCauley with BBC. Can you tell us whether or not you warned people that the U.S. would pull out of NATO if they weren't meeting their spending goals?
I told people that I'd be very unhappy if they didn't up their commitments very substantially, because the United States has been paying a tremendous amount, probably 90% of the cost of NATO. And now people are going to start, and countries are going to start upping their commitments. So I let them know yesterday, actually. I was surprised that you didn't pick it up. It took till today. But yesterday, I let them know that I was extremely unhappy with what was happening. And they have substantially upped their commitment, yeah. And now we're very happy and have a very, very powerful, very, very strong NATO, much stronger than it was 2 days ago. Yes, ma'am. Yes, hi, how are you? I know, you're very famous on television.
I have a question again about, did you ever at any point say that the U.S., though, might stop engaging with NATO? And do you think that your rhetoric helps NATO cohesion, or are you worried that people might think that the U.S. is going to not be as committed to NATO? There are a lot of people who say they were worried and stressed by what you did yesterday.
Well, they were probably worried because the United States was not being treated fairly, but now we are, because the commitment has been up so much. So now they are. And I was very firm yesterday. You have to understand, I know a lot of the people in the room. I was here last year. I let them know last year in a less firm manner, but pretty firm, and they raised an additional $33 billion, I think going to $40 billion, but it's $33 billion as of today. And then today and yesterday, I was probably a little bit more firm. But I believe in NATO. I think NATO is a very important, probably the greatest ever done. But the United States was paying for anywhere from 70 to 90% of it, depending on the way you calculate. That's not fair to the United States. In addition to that, as you know, we're in negotiations with the EU, and we're going to be meeting with them next week. We've been treated very unfairly on trade. Our farmers have been shut out of the European Union. Now, you could say they're different, but basically, to a large extent, they're the same countries. So I think we're going to be ultimately treated fairly on trade. We'll see what happens. But I can tell you that NATO now is really a fine-tuned machine. People are paying money that they never paid before. They're happy to do it. And the United States is being treated much more fairly. Yes, sir.
PBS NewsHour. Did you win any concessions in your meeting and discussions with the German Chancellor when it comes to German defense spending and also this issue of purchasing energy from Russia? And secondly, what would you say to your critics that say by creating this scene here at NATO, you're only enabling President Putin in Russia to further disturb things in Ukraine and Georgia?
Well, if you consider putting up tremendously the additional funds at a level that nobody's ever seen before, I don't think that's helping Russia. I think that NATO is much stronger now than it was 2 days ago. I think that NATO was not doing what they were supposed to be doing, a lot of the countries, and we were doing much more than we should have been doing. Frankly, we were carrying too much of a burden. That's why we call it burden sharing. I was using the term a lot today, burden sharing. We had a fantastic meeting at the end, 29 countries, and they are putting up a lot. Germany is increased very substantially their time period, and Germany's coming along, and we still have to figure out what's going on with the pipeline, because the pipeline is coming in from Russia, so we're going to have to figure that out. I brought it up. Nobody brought it up but me, and we all are talking about it now, and actually I think the world is talking about it now, maybe more than anything else, but we're going to figure that out. And frankly, maybe everybody's going to have a good relationship with Russia, so there'll be a lot less problem with the pipeline. But to me, that was a very major point of contention. We discussed it at length today. Germany has agreed to do a lot better than they were doing, and we're very happy with that. We had a very good relationship with Angela Merkel. Yes.
Mr. President.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Margaret Tala from Bloomberg.
Yes. After all these years, I know, Margaret. Go ahead.
Thank you. Maybe I'm being dense here, but could you just clarify, are you still threatening to potentially pull the United States out of NATO for any reason, and do you believe you can do that without Congress's explicit support and approval?
I think I probably can, but that's unnecessary, and the people have stepped up today like they've never stepped up before. And remember the word, $33 billion more they're paying. And you'll hear that from the Secretary General in a little while. He thanked me, actually. He actually thanked me. And everybody in the room thanked me. There's a great collegial spirit in that room that I don't think they've had in many years. They're very strong. So, yeah, very, very unified, very strong, no problem, right?
We're in NATO. No, okay.
No problem.
Mr. President, Jonathan Lemire with the Associated Press.
Sure.
You have said previously you wanted the countries to step up their spending to 2%. Yesterday, the suggestion it might be 4% or perhaps 2% at a much quicker timetable. Yeah. Can you clarify, what did they commit to doing? Yeah. Is that satisfactory to you?
So what they're doing is spending at a much faster clip. They're going up to the 2% level. Now, you have to understand, some of them have parliaments, they have their own congresses, they have a lot of things they have to go to. So, you know, they're here as a prime minister, as a president, and they can't necessarily go in and say, this is what we're going to do, but they're going back for approvals. Some are at 2%, others have agreed definitely to go to 2%, and some are going back to get the approval, and which they will get, to go to 2%. After we're at 2%, we'll start talking about going higher. But I said ultimately we should be, in years in advance, we should be at 4%. I think 4% is the right number. Now, the United States, depending on the way you calculate it, was at 4.2%. And I said, that's unfair. And we have the largest GDP by far, especially since we've increased it by so much since a thing called the election. Our GDP has gone way up. And so the fact that our GDP went way up, that means we're paying for even more, which is very unfair. So I explained that. We will go to much higher than 2% into the future, but right now we're getting people up to 2%, and that'll take place over a fairly short period of time, a short number of years. Okay? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Tomislav Krasnec from Večernji List, Croatian daily newspaper. We understand your message.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. We understand your message, but some people ask themselves, will you be tweeting differently once you board the Air Force One? Thank you.
No, that's other people that do that. I don't. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Jeremy Diamond with CNN. How are you?
Jeremy.
Quick question with regards to Germany and the comments that you made yesterday. Do you feel like, given the threats that you made about potentially leaving NATO, about insulting Germany's sovereignty, it appears, by suggesting they are totally controlled by Russia, do you feel like that's an effective way to conduct diplomacy? And secondly, would you be able to be a little bit more specific about the commitments that you secured today with regards to increasing financial commitment? Is there an updated timeline? Are there specific countries you could cite? Because a majority of them are already planning to meet that 2% threshold by 2024.
No, many of them. In fact, Germany was going to be in the year 2028 or 30. Yeah, I think it's a very effective way to deal, but I didn't deal exactly the way you said. I have great respect for Germany. My father's from Germany. Both of my parents are from the EU, despite the fact they don't treat us well on trade, but I think that'll change also, and I think we'll see that because on the 25th of July, they're coming in to start negotiations with me. We'll see. And if they don't negotiate in good faith, we'll do something having to do with all of the millions of cars that are coming into our country and being taxed at a virtually zero level, at a very low level. But, Jeremy, I think it's been a very effective way of negotiating, but I'm not negotiating. I just want fairness for the United States. We're paying for far too much of NATO. NATO is very important, but NATO is helping Europe more than it's helping us. At the same time, it's very good for us. So we have now got it to a point where people are paying a lot more money. And that's starting really last year. It really had, you were there last year, and last year we had a big impact. Again, we took in $33 billion more, and if you ask Secretary General Stoltenberg, he gives us total credit, meaning me, I guess, in this case, total credit, because I said it was unfair. Now, what has happened is presidents over many years, from Ronald Reagan to Barack Obama, they came in, they said, okay, hey, do the best you can, and they left. Nobody did anything about it. And it got to a point where the United States was paying for 90% of NATO. And that's not fair. So it's changed. We had a really good meeting today. We had a great meeting in terms of getting along. I know most of the people in the room because of last year, because of the year and a half that we've been in office, year and a half plus. But we have a great relationship. Everybody in that room, by the time we left, got along, and they agreed to pay more, and they agreed to pay it more quickly. Yeah. Go ahead, Phil.
Hey, Mr. President, Philip Rucker from the Washington Post. You tweeted yesterday, what good is NATO? And you've talked about NATO as an alliance that benefits Europe, that defends and protects Europe. Do you see any value of NATO to the United States vis-a-vis Russia? Does it help protect the United States from Russia, in your view?
I think it's another very strong ally, as together it's much stronger than, obviously, individual countries. I think it's the way we have it now. I think it's I think NATO got, you know what was happening with spending prior to my getting into office. The numbers were going down. Now the numbers have gone up like a rocket ship. The numbers have gone up a lot, and they've gone up rapidly, and they're now going up further. So I think NATO is going to be very, very effective. I'm very impressed with, and really know, and he's a friend of mine, but Secretary General Stoltenberg has done a fantastic job and putting it all together. And we were the ones that really, we gave him an extension of his contract, as you know. I think he's done a really good job. I think that when I was saying that, I am very concerned with the pipeline. I don't like the pipeline. And when I talk about NATO, I say, how do you have NATO? And then you have somebody paying the people that you're protecting against. But maybe we'll get along with the group that we're protecting against. I think that's a real possibility. As you know, I'm meeting with President Putin on Monday. And I think we go into that meeting not looking for so much. We want to find out about Syria. We will, of course, ask.
And that's President Trump this morning in an impromptu press conference in Brussels after meeting with NATO leaders. The president declaring that he was very successful. We'll have to check the numbers from the individual countries about their commitments to NATO. But
well, the president's declaring victory after bullying former members of NATO, saying they're not paying much, emerging from an emergency session, saying they are going to pay more, that they are going to pay more quickly. He did concede, however, that many of these governments have Congresses or lawmakers, parliaments need approval to do that. But it's clear the president wanted to get out of this meeting and claim some sort of mantle of victory, that he succeeded.
He said it's a much stronger NATO than it was 2 days ago, and I think feels that he deserves much of the credit for that.
The key point, though, is that a president who declared NATO obsolete did say it is very good for us, the United States. It's always been a question about whether the president believes in this 70-year-old alliance. So taking a victory lap on the money, but also reaffirming the benefit of NATO, which a lot of people were nervous about.
Worried about. Good point.
We will have much more on this story coming up at 7 a.m. on CBS This Morning.
Coverage will continue throughout the day on your local news on this CBS station and on our 24-hour streaming network, CBSN.
This has been a CBS News special report. I'm Nora O'Donnell with John Dickerson and Alex Wagner, CBS News, New York.